have a look at this. It's the brand new LG G3 OLED. And this is quite possibly the best TV in the entire world right now, to the point I actually bought this myself. This is not a sponsored video, this is not even a review sample. That is a very tasty pepper right there. I paid £5,000 for this guy, for the 77-inch model. But actually the key upgrade this year with the G3 is the MLA, which makes this OLED so much brighter than anything else before. It's going to give those cutie OLEDs a run for their money in terms of brightness, but also we get those beautiful, rich, inky blacks. Also, being the gallery design, it's still wall mounted. You can buy a stand separately. We've also got a new anti-reflective coating, which I actually didn't see for a minute first because I forgot to take the plastic off, but once I removed that, it was incredible. And while you can probably see there's a bit of light reflection over there with the windows, normally in a medium dark room, it looks like you're looking into the abyss on like a matte black panel. A crazy expensive, but also crazy awesome TV. And I've also paired it with a couple of new Sonos Era 300 speakers with my Sonos Arc to try and give me the ultimate home theater experience. The thing is though, I already had a great TV. I've been using the LG G1 for the past 2 years and absolutely loved it. And even though this is a bit of an excessive upgrade, okay, a lot, the G3 is the first TV I've actually been excited to buy in quite a while, aside from maybe the new Sony and Samsung QD OLEDs, which I can't wait to test and compare it to. Although sadly, LG's own C series, which has always been the better value option, unfortunately misses out on this year's big upgrades. Now, to give you some context, last year's G2 was a fairly minor refinement of the G1. The bezels were slimmed down to about half the size, it was a touch brighter, the ports had a higher bandwidth and the new processor was a little bit faster, but that was about it. Now, the G3 here maintains those sleek bezels and a similar overall design, but firstly, they've beefed up the wall mount with 4 rather than 2 holes to drop it into, although it doesn't seem to make much of a difference to how wobbly this can be if you start playing around with it. More importantly though, we have this new anti-reflective coating, we get the latest Alpha 9 Gen 6 processor, the micro lens array, or MLA tech, used to boost the brightness. It's quite funny actually, if you put your hand up to the screen, especially on a really bright area, you really can feel the heat coming off it. Round the back, we still have 4 HDMI 2.1s, all with full fat 48 gigabits per second bandwidth, and we still have this little valley to route all your cables down. One slight frustration I have with this TV is the cable management, because you can see here I've makeshifted a bit of a hidey thing. This is just a piece of wood to hide these cables, because I've not come up with a really good solution if you're not going to drill a couple of holes into the back of your wall, down and then out again, which I don't really want to do. The issue is all your HDMI cables come down this side, right? The ports are here, they can be fed down and they come out there, but the power comes out from the center. Compare that to maybe the Samsung TVs with their One Connect box. Here, not so great. So the G3 is legitimately a big upgrade, even year on year versus last year's G2, but the downside is it's more expensive. Right now, this 77-inch version of the G3 is about £5,000, whereas last year's G2 launched at $4,500. And in fact, you can bag yourself this size G2 for around $3,500 right now, which is definitely worth considering. But either way, your best bet with any TV is to wait like 6 months. Around November, you'll probably find this on sale for like a good £1,000 less, or maybe go for the cheaper 65-inch model. That seems a bit more sensible. But let's park the question of value and trying to rationalize why you need this, and let's just talk about how bloody good it is. Because for the first time, an OLED TV can properly go toe-to-toe with the brightest QLEDs that we've seen. Because the question of do you go OLED or QLED has always been, are you watching movies in a darker room or sports and games in a bright room? But now it seems we kind of have the best of both worlds. I measured the G3's peak HDR brightness at 1500 nits, and that's even achievable in cinema mode, not just the vivid mode that you'd rarely use. That's nearly twice as bright as my old G1, which topped out at around 800 nits, and even last year's G2 only pushed that to about 900. But now we have MLA, which uses tiny micro lenses, around 5,000 of them per pixel, so on this 77-inch model there's like 42 billion of them. And these help redirect the light that would normally be lost by reflections inside the TV, making it much more efficient so they can push up the brightness, and it even improves the viewing angles. The G3 is also incredibly color accurate, even out of the box. The usual picture profiles make a return, and I tend to stick with Expert Bright for most of my day-to-day use, and then it'll auto switch me to Cinema HDR, or Dolby Vision, or Filmmaker, or Game Optimizer if it detects the relevant content. The auto genre selection and AI Picture Pro mode settings all make a return, and I'm quite happy to leave these on, but if you don't want any of that going on in the background, you can turn all that off if you prefer. Now, motion smoothing is very controversial, and movie purists will of course just have this turned off, but for me, I quite like this cinematic movement option, as it just gives you that little bit of smoothing and also helps to reduce the occasional strobing effect that you might see on a slow pan, but without that horrible soap opera effect. There's also a couple of advertisement and home screen settings that I like to turn off. I do find the UI a touch faster than my G1, but it's not night and day. I forget exactly which update it was, but WebOS became a lot more streamlined and more responsive sometime last year, and you haven't got like a dozen rows of content it's trying to populate, which takes forever to load. But we do also get a whole bunch of apps and LG channels that you're probably never going to use, although you can customize the home screen and then only show the apps that you actually want. We do also now get what are essentially folders for different features like gaming, music, sports, and then inside you'll see all the relevant apps and modes. It's a nice idea, and it's better than just browsing their app store to find Spotify or GeForce Now. I can't say I find myself using these folders very often, but it's a good place to start. I must admit, I do also quite like the art gallery, and together with the better anti-reflective coating which we have on the G3, it brings it a touch closer to something like the Samsung Frame. Gaming is also absolutely glorious on this TV. Up to 4K 120, variable refresh, G-Sync, FreeSync Premium, and even, uniquely, Dolby Vision at full 4K 120. Not that there's any game that supports that right now, but you know, it's there for one day. And then we also have LG's very purple gamer-centric menu, which tells you your frame rate, what VRR is being used, and also you've got a handful of picture profiles and options to play around with. I'm telling you, Star Wars Jedi Survivor looked absolutely incredible on this. So, it's a great TV for, well, pretty much everything really, but there are downsides, and the biggest issue is the price. It is very, very expensive, and it is a real shame the C3 doesn't share the same MLA tech and the higher brightness, and also the fact that anything bigger than the 77 also doesn't have the same high brightness. The built-in speakers are pretty lackluster, although with this kind of setup, chances are you're going to have a soundbar or a speaker system anyway. What I would say though is if you are tempted to pull the trigger on a G3, firstly I would recommend waiting a few months to see if the prices drop a little bit, and also wait for the reviews of the Samsung and Sony QD OLEDs. They're very good TVs as well, and there is more to it, like Samsung obviously doesn't support Dolby Vision, which is a bit of a deal breaker for me, but definitely check out those comparisons. What I do know for a fact though is that if you do buy one of these, you are not going to be disappointed. But what do you think? Could you be tempted to upgrade? And also let me know what TV you're using right now in the comments below. If you want to see more from me, then a like and subscribe would be amazing, and I'll catch you next time right here on the Tech Chat.